So this is the bowl that we're going to alter. It's gonna look similar to this. And then I usually put a frog in it. Was one of my signature pieces that I usually make. Haven't made one in a while now, but I've sold a lot of these monstera, altered monstera leaf. Just wanted to show you the back. It's, I carved the foot just like you would any bowl, and then I carve. And the carving part I will show on the next video. So I've been doing these mini tutorials. As I make the pieces, I'll be recording mini tutorials so you understand the whole process. Anyways, this one is just a decorative piece I made for myself, and I leave it, just on my tabletop, on my coffee table like this. It's porcelain, and it was all carved, altered, carved. I added these as coils, the veins of the leaves, and then the carvings, as you can see. And then I added these little glass beads to look like water beads, on the, like after it rains. And so that's what I would like to show you, how I go about making something like this. And that's also going to be part of the workshop, the hands-on workshop I will have on altering clay. So we'll do an open form, a closed, taller piece, like a vase, that I will also demonstrate on my next mini tutorials. So this one is smaller, and is also a different clay, or a new clay to me that I've been using, and I would like to test it out and see if it is a good clay for altering. One of the challenges I have is to trim the piece before leather hard. And here is just the foot that I trimmed today. So in order to alter, there are different ways that you can do it. Like you can also wait for leather hard and then rehydrate the clay again so the clay becomes malleable. I don't like doing that way because it has more chances of cracking. And so the way I like to do is work with the clay before leather hard. So the clay is still not sticky. It's not that wet and it's not that sticky, but it's still, you can still push it and, change the form and shape and stuff. So here's the bowl that I opened, and I show you guys how I open to stretch it, and it becomes kind of like a shallow bowl. And so now that it's trimmed, I'm going to wet it again. It's also like, if you think when you pushed you left some marks inside, you can also use a rib or a trimming tool to trim the inside also. I do that sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. Just so that it's one smooth curve inside. So here's what we're gonna start doing. I'm gonna wet also on the outside of the bowl, just with the sponge. So here is when you're gonna find out if the clay is good for altering or not. And by the way, I haven't done any altering with this clay, so we're gonna find out together if it is good or not. So what you start doing is you start pushing the clay, deforming it on both sides like that, so it becomes oval. And then you look at it and you make a line in the middle. Doesn't have to be, exact. I try to just eyeball it. And it's gonna come to here. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of altering these next couple weeks, I think. And so every time I do something, I'll try to do the mini tutorial so you guys become familiar with altering and the stages of the clay that you can alter, and then the stages of the clay that you can carve. There's always a phase, you know, of the clay that you can do things, not always. For example, you can carve on the clay when it's sticky, you can, but it wouldn't be good. So now the idea here will be to keep pushing it, wetting it. So I'm defining the end of the leaf on this side here. And by the way, just for the feel of it, the clay is not as plastic as I would like. So this may not be a good clay for altering. Just saying, just from touching it now and doing it. I'm used to doing that with porcelain. There are certain porcelain clay bodies that are very plastic, which means very easy to deform without cracking. But we'll see. It's not quite in the middle, maybe right there. All right, so here's what we're going to, it will be like the other end of the leaf. So now I'm going to cut it. I like using this knife from Slice. The company is called Slice. It's got ceramic blades, so they never rust, right? Because the blades themselves are real thin. They work really well when working with clay. So here, I'm going to do a cut right there. Just so I define the front of my leaf here. And then you just keep cutting. Until you get to here, and then here comes to a little point like that. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. Similar to this, doesn't have to be, it's not an exact thing. Just to get an idea, I'm just going to mark how I did it. Kind of elongated shape, and then here comes to a little point like that. Again, you can use your fingers, but sometimes you want something smaller to mark the clay, so you use this. And then I'll show you the rest, but you know what, I am going to cut just a little bit here. There. Yep. I think I like that better. Okay, so now I'm going to wet the edge and smooth it out so it's rounded at the edges here. can make it pretty thin at the edges here to look like a leaf. I mean, not as thin like a leaf, but to look refined. You know, you don't want to look it too thick. Okay. So now, you know how the leaves has the splits. So here you're going to start marking those splits with you're just using your finger. So I'm going to start from here. Remember, you always have to hold underneath to support with the other hand and push the clay. And you see how you're stretching the clay. So that's one, and the other one will be right there. Always holding underneath. Let's do some kind of move the edges a little bit to make it look like there's some movement here. Like that. So here's when you can start cutting away some pieces, and I will talk about it as I do it. So what we're creating here is an illusion that all these pieces are separate. So you will open the sections here. Like so. But not all the way through. And then you make this piece higher and that piece lower to look like the piece is separated and on top of this one. And then this one, you can cut it a little bit like that to look even more like it is this one over the other one, when it's really not. It's all, I just created an illusion by doing that. And just cutting those little tips there. So I'll do it again right here so you can see again how it's done. This is all you're going to cut right there. And then make this one pop over a little bit like that. This one is lower, this one is higher. Then cut this little triangle right here to look even further that this one is over that, like that. You see how now it's starting to transform? Same thing here. Still a little wet, the clay. I should have waited until it dries just a little bit more, but for the sake of the video, just so you guys understand what I'm doing here. Same thing, I'm gonna push this end over like that. And then once you wait until it dries a little more, you can even manipulate a little more, but if the clay starts to get too soft, just leave it alone for a little while until it sets a little bit more, and then you can continue to work. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. Cut this rounded, that edge right there, and then make that little point like that. And if you look on the bottom part, they're all attached. None of these are all separate. You see? See the difference from this side to that side right there? I think I'm gonna open this a little more. It almost seems like the shape right here is not quite right still. I should have brought my monstera leaf so I could see it. When you see the actual leaf, then it becomes a lot easier. I think it has a more rounded edge right here. So I'm cutting farther down. Something like that. And same thing here. I think it is too elongated. Again, you can just do your changes on the fly as you see, you know, however you want to make it. Always remembering to thin it out. So, let me see. Another thing that you do is add these little veins here of the leaves. You can either carve these out or add like a coil, like I did here. I used a coil. And that's what I have here with me, just to give a little quick demo. Just a coil, and like I said, you can either carve, make them protruding out, or make the indent, the grooves. It's your choice. You just wet it and then squeeze it between your fingers, run it, and then you can add more throughout. But this is just an idea. I guess I am going to carve mine too, because that would be, like I said, on my next mini tutorial that I'll show you guys how I do it. And then when you carve, also changes everything, changes the whole look of the leaf. So right now it's still pretty soft, because the more you manipulate the clay, the softer it gets. So sometimes I'm just gonna let it sit for a while like this, cover, and then once it gets a little harder, then you can go back and start working on it again. But so for my feel of this clay, it is a good clay for altering. I was pleasantly surprised. Again, this is that Iceman clay. It is a good clay for hand building. That's what they say. Even though I do altering, but I didn't think it was a great clay for throwing. But you get used to it. It's just different, and it works really well for hand building, altering, and carving. Because I know for trimming, it trims like butter, you know. So I know it's gonna be a great clay for carving too. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.